Welcome back to AM Northwest. You know, the kind of relationship a father and daughter has can affect a daughter for a lifetime. Here with advice on being the best dad you can be, we welcome the author of In Search of Fatherhood, Kevin Renner, along with his daughter, Catherine. Guys, nice to have you both here.
Thanks for having us.
Kevin, let's start with you and just the concept of the book. How did this come to you?
Well, it came to me when I was 52 years old, and I thought, you know, you can relate to this as a father. There is nothing that trains us to be fathers of daughters, right? I mean, we learned 101 things growing up. How to be a good father to a daughter is not one of them. Or maybe if you got it, I missed that class.
And I would expand that to say that, you know, to be a parent, it's there's no real good training, and if you're like me, you live in fear that you're doing it wrong all the time anyway.
Exactly. So I wanted to get a better understanding of fatherhood from the vantage point of daughters. So I spent a year on a very soulful journey, speaking with 50 women across 7 decades and 15 or 20 different countries on their life stories and how they were shaped by their fathers.
Did you find in these women that you interviewed that good fathers had a common trait versus men who maybe weren't considered good fathers?
Well, no, they did specific things differently, and we can talk about that. But as far as the traits, no, the fathers were all over the map in terms of character, social class, any of those kinds of things.
I love the phrase that one of the women you talked to is early in the book about the fact that she hopes your daughters know they drew the long straw. That is, that you're a good dad, but you didn't think you were.
Well, I think she might have a somewhat skewed view of who I am. Yeah, I mean, I really went into this because I felt that, you know, I had a lot to learn, and I did.
Well, let's talk before we get, because Catherine is here, because you've got some tips for dads on how to be better fathers. But let's start with yours, Kevin, on what you think, things you learned that dads can do to be better fathers. And the first thing you say is communicate.
Yeah. Well,
everything.
Well, everything communicates is one of the things that I've written about. So when fathers, through their behavior or whatever, they're really informing the culture of the family that gets internalized by the daughters. So everything we're doing is just like laying down one more coat of varnish on the finish.
You make the point that you know, who your daughter marries or you know, who she shares her life with or doesn't can be really impacted by her father.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That came through loud and clear in these 50 conversations I had.
That's a scary responsibility. And the other is dads should hang out with their daughters.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that was reflected on by many women, and I spoke with women who had great relationships and very tragic relationships and everything in between. But one of the things that really stood out was that small things made the big difference. And just hanging out, playing catch, playing board games, doing small things together, those are some of the most memorable moments that women have as they reflect back on their childhoods.
Do these women that you talk to, did they connect more with their fathers when they were younger or as adults?
It varied. It varied. Some of them didn't establish relationships with their fathers until well into adulthood. And some of them had very tender relationships. For example, I interviewed a woman named Wendy who proposed to her father when she was 4 years old. Her single father was in medical residency, you know, raising her by himself, and they did these wonderful things together, and she was infatuated with him and proposed to him at age 4.
Very cute. You also talk about very quickly, because I want to get to Catherine's tips on bonding and boundaries. Both are important.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting to hear the women who had very healthy relationships with their fathers talk about how important it was for them to have fathers who were firm and who set boundaries and who held them accountable. And that was a real eye-opener for me.
I've heard that from kids, too. The kids, you know, they like dads and parents who say no and, you know, aren't always giving in. It's important. Yeah. Catherine, does your father tell you no sometimes?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
You've got some tips as a 12-year-old girl and a daughter. You've got some tips for dads, and I think this is where all dads can really listen up. And the first thing you say is that fathers should accept that their daughters may be different.
Yeah, and I know this is something a lot of girls and women don't get from their fathers and parents in general, but I think once you're, you know, around my age, 10 or 11 or 12, you start finding yourself, you know? And that continues throughout your life. And I think a lot of fathers don't support their daughters because they're different. They grow up to have different religious views or join a different political party. Maybe they're a writer, even though both their parents are doctors. And I think it's really important that the daughters do get support because it's their life. Accept
them as the people that they are.
Yeah.
And the other is that you echo exactly what your dad just said. Spending time together is very important.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have memories of spending time with your dad?
Yeah.
When you were younger? Yeah.
A lot of them. Chess, going to the movies, playing baseball outside, that sort of thing.
And then finally you say, surprise your daughters with small delights, little things. Like when you come back from trips?
Yeah. My dad would, when he was working for this business, and I was about 3 or 4, he would travel a lot, and I remember he would always come back from like Germany and Holland and China with some little surprise for me and Julia, like chocolate or little figurines, stuff like that.
Just kind of reminding them that you were thinking of them even while you weren't home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a powerful book, and I'm glad you wrote it. We'll let folks know it's available in all the usual places. We'll have more information too on our website at KATU.com. Thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.